Good afternoon and welcome to the Midday News. Here's what we have in the bulletin. Calls intensify for the Public Accounts Committee of Parliament to hold Health Ministry to account for issues in Auditor General's report. Peter Bunting leaving Manchester Central. And later in sports, leaders Arnett Garden seeks semi-final berth in Jamaica Premier League. Thank you for joining us. I'm Shane Masters, and here are the details. The probe into the COVID-19 expenditure needs to go further. The call by corruption and transparency watchdogs, Jamaica Accountability Meter Portal JAMP, and National Integrity Action NIA. It comes following fiery exchanges between the Auditor General Pamela Monroe Ellis and Permanent Secretary in the Health Ministry Dunstan Bryan. Details in this report.
The Auditor General's Department has raised several red flags in its report on how the Health Ministry went about conducting its affairs during the heights of the COVID-19 pandemic. Of note, $619 million, which was spent on quarantine facilities at hotels in 2020 without clearly defined contracts. But the attitude of the Permanent Secretary has caught the attention of transparency and corruption watchdogs, the Jamaica Accountability Meter Portal JAMP, and the National Integrity Action NIA. It's why they are calling for the matter to once again be deliberated at Tuesday's sitting of the Public Accounts Committee, PAC. They say the committee should secure an adequate explanation for the delays in financial reporting and a firm timeline for compliance with the law, among other things.
There was too much left untouched in the review of the COVID expenditure audit. We believe the PAC should complete their examination and ensure that the Permanent Secretary addresses the findings before they move on, because that is really the job of the committee and the PS. We were concerned that for the last meeting, an entire hour, the Permanent Secretary managed to set the terms and conditions on which he would be held to account. So the PS really decided that unless he was told which law he broke, that's it.
The JAMP Executive Director described the last sitting of the PAC on April 18 as a showpiece, as the Health Ministry's Permanent Secretary continued to ask which law, if any, he had broken while carrying out his duties.
And when the Auditor General provided the law, not only did PS Bryan continue to demand to know which law, but it was very concerning for those watching to find out that the answer was on page 2 of the executive summary of the report in the Permanent Secretary's hands. This is a report the PS has had since June of 2020. Yet we had so much of the Parliament's time spent, 1 hour, asking to be told which law. So the question is, how seriously is he taking this audit?
The Health Ministry is to be back before the PAC to look at another audit on Tuesday, but the watchdogs believe that should not be done until Permanent Secretary Dunstan Bryan provides answers to the Auditor General's concerns in a manner that meets the standards of transparency, accountability, and respect.
We spend millions on these reports that the Auditor General generates, and we need as a people to ensure we get value for money, because these reports are not there to castigate public officials. They are done to protect our money, protect our assets, and in reality, to protect our future.
Herman Green, TVJ News.
People's National Party standard bearer for Central Manchester, Peter Bunting, says he will not be running for the seat in the next general election. However, Mr. Bunting, who was speaking at a PNP conference in Belfield, Manchester on Sunday, did not say he was exiting representational politics.
This will be the last round of conferences, divisional and constituency conferences, where I am the standard bearer with a chairman or MP. I shared that with my constituency executive back in January.
Meanwhile, Mandeville's Mayor Donovan Mitchell has thrown his hat in the ring for the seat. Mr. Mitchell, while drumming up support from the audience, received high commendations from Mr. Bunting and senior PNP members.
So, comrades, I want to say to conference in the Belfield division, I want to say to the leaders of the People's National Party, that I, Donovan Mitchell, it is my greatest intention to make sure that Central Manchester return to the fold of the People's National Party. We will do it.
The constituency is currently under the flagship of the Jamaica Labour Party's Rhoda Moy Crawford, who unseated Peter Bunting in the 2020 general election. However, Mr. Mitchell, who is councillor for the Royal Flat Division, is confident he can win back the constituency for the PNP.
We'll do it like John Duna did it for many, many years. We'll do it like Peter Bunting. And so help me God, if I get it, them can't get it back, because we're going to win it out, 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 till it can't done.
Trade unionist St. Patrice Ennis says there is a lack of clarity and in-depth exploration of the negative reviews coming out of the report of the fact-finding mission on the treatment of Jamaican farm workers in Canada. Halshane Burke has the details.
There was skepticism of the seasonal agricultural workers program in Canada last year, following reports by some workers of inhumane or slavery-like working conditions. It led Labour Minister Carl Samuda dispatching a fact-finding team to investigate the claims. The full report of the team, made public last week, outlined that in general, the majority of workers expressed satisfaction with the program, and contrary to some of the claims, there were no systemic slavery-like working conditions. But trade unionist St. Patrice Ennis says the claims that led to the fact-finding mission have yet to be fully investigated, particularly those relating to the farms identified in the complaints from workers. He says the report lacks new and clarifying information to better illustrate the challenges being faced by the farm workers.
There is still work to be done, because what has happened is that those things are continuing, because the report did not say that they weren't continuing. It just spoke broadly that there are these effects, and then it made mention that overall people are satisfied. I think we kind of know that, because people have been going back and forth and so on, and it has been going on since 1966. But where we have abuse and where we have people not being treated or being looked after when they are injured on the job are real cause for concerns, and that is where I believe the report ought to have focused.
Mr. Ennis was speaking on Radio Jamaica's That's a Wrap program on Sunday. Halshane Burke, TVJ News.
Are there benefits to the drought impacting the country? It appears so after one public health official explained that the extended dry spell facing the country could work in the people's favor in the fight against the H1N1 virus. Kirk Wright reports.
The good news is that, as far as we know, based on sampling, we don't have that the swine flu here, which is good.
Reassuring words for the people of Clarendon, especially those who have been expressing fear after the health ministry confirmed the neighbouring parish, Manchester, had recorded a case of H1N1 virus. In addition to the virus not being detected in Clarendon, the Chief Public Health Officer in charge of the parish, Dr. Kimberly Scarlett, said the prolonged dry spell impacting parts of the country is good news in relation to this virus.
The formal flu season actually from October to December, and then January to March. As you can see that it's in April, so we're actually coming out of that respiratory season. So it's really unfortunate that we do have this case, but it's getting hotter, and this time of the year you're gonna have less people coming down with respiratory illnesses, unless it is that this swine flu spreads. But this is not the time of the year for it, because it's hotter, so I don't think it's going to become a major issue.
But still, nothing is being taken for granted, which is why members of the public and health staff are still being encouraged to continue taking steps to protect themselves.
We're going to have increased vigilance for severe acute respiratory illnesses, and of course we advise our staff to continue to wear a mask, right? Because just like how it was with COVID, you have to wear a mask, social distance where you can, hand washing and so forth, and good cough and sneeze etiquette.
The public health official was speaking with our news centre at a ceremony to mark a partnership with the Thompson Town Clinic and a group known as the Caribbean Angels. The group will assist the public health facility to better serve the community by, among other things, providing some resources,
There's a commitment to help to refurbish the health center, give us equipment, supplies, and so forth. The staff is very motivated. There's a small staff of 12 with visiting persons, but they're motivated. And we really want to thank the Ministry of Health as well as the Ministry of Foreign Affairs for giving us this opportunity to benefit the citizens of the Thompson Town community and adjoining communities. So it's really a wonderful day today.
Kirk Wright, TVJ News.
And just a clarification, Dr. Scarlett Campbell is the Medical Officer of Health and not the Chief Public Health Officer in the parish. And it's time for a break here on the Midday News, but please stay with us. More stories when we return. Welcome back to the Midday News. Scores of commuters, including students, were left stranded this morning as frustrated residents of Ferry Hill, Portland, mounted a roadblock in protest against a prolonged dust nuisance and inconsistent water supply. More in this report.
It's not the first time residents of Ferry Hill, Portland have blocked the road in protest against the poor road condition and dust nuisance. They say the root cause can be traced back to work for the Southern Coastal Highway Improvement Project in East Portland. Following the last protest, a representative from China Harbor Engineering Company Czech spoke with residents and an arrangement was made to water the road daily, but it appears that was short-lived. The residents say there's no water in their pipes.
We want water and we're tired of this. A 3 weeks now we don't have no water and the road now do nothing to.
Them take out the pump and them gone with it. We not have a clue as to when the pump will come back, so we get no water. We have the kids them for go school, we have to cook, we have to wash. When we wash now, the dust dirty up the clothes. And we come like nobody here, so now we wear clean clothes.
Miss Lewis says the dust exposure has resulted in respiratory problems for children attending the Boston Primary and Infant School. She says the wetting of the road has had little effect. We spoke to National Water Commission Regional Manager Richard Williams.
We had an issue which resulted in our chlorine booster pump at Ferry. That is the pump that puts the chlorine into the water to treat it.
Mm-hmm.
That was taken out of service. So we had to shut down the distribution.
Mm-hmm.
We tried to get it back over the weekend, but we were unsuccessful.
He says there are plans to resume wetting the road today. Carrie Ann Simpson for TVJ News.
And it's now time for the Business Minute.
Gaming and lottery company Supreme Ventures Limited is reporting less profit in its first quarter. For the January to March period, the company made $712 million after tax. That's $290 million less than the just over $1 billion earned in the similar period last year. SVL says the lower profit was due to higher selling and administrative expenses of $222 million. This increased spending came as the company prepared to enter the Ghanaian market. SVL announced last week that Game Park Limited, a company based in Ghana to which it will be providing technical support, received approval from the authorities to operate. Meanwhile, total revenues amounted to $12.9 billion versus the $12.72 billion earned last year. Despite ticket sales being barely changed at $28 billion, SVL says it paid out almost 6% more money to customers in the quarter, amounting to $22 billion. Further afield, JP Morgan Chase is set to take over the troubled U.S. bank First Republic in a deal brokered by regulators. The Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation has already taken control of the embattled bank, which has been teetering for weeks. First Republic is the second largest bank failure in the nation's history. The San Francisco-based lender's shares fell by more than 75% last week after it admitted that customers had withdrawn $100 billion of deposits in March. As part of the transaction, First Republic's 84 offices will reopen as branches of JP Morgan Chase. And that's it for the Business Minute. I'm Hal Shane Burke.
And the time now for the top regional and international stories.
In the region, The United States Coast Guard has detained more than 480 illegal migrants from Cuba, Haiti, and the Dominican Republic following an 88-day patrol for illegal migration and drug trafficking in the Florida Straits and the Caribbean Sea. They were detained and repatriated to their homeland. The Coast Guard says, in collaboration with U.S. Customs and Border Protection, the U.S. Navy, the U.S. Air Force, federal agents from throughout the U.S., partner nations in the Caribbean, and the Royal Netherlands Navy, they conducted maritime safety and security missions. On the international scene, Russia has launched a series of missiles at Ukrainian cities in the second pre-dawn attack in 3 days. Pavlorada logistics hub near the central city of Dnipro was hit ahead of a much-anticipated counter-offensive by the Ukraine. The strike sparked a major fire, destroyed dozens of houses, and wounded 34 people. And hundreds of foreigners fleeing Sudan have arrived in the Saudi Arabian port city of Jeddah as Sudan enters a third week of fighting between rival military forces despite a ceasefire. A ferry with around 1,900 evacuees arrived at a Saudi naval base in Jeddah after crossing the Red Sea from Port Sudan in the latest evacuation to the kingdom by sea. The prospects of negotiations between the army and paramilitary have so far seemed bleak. And those were the top regional and international stories. I'm Carrie Simpson.
Thanks, Carrie. And we head to a quick break. When we come back, Jordan Ford will have your midday sports report.